everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Blood on the Razor Wire TV, where we bring it to you real and we bring it to you raw. Got a guy on today, Flacco, done some time, involved in some gang movement type stuff, but he can tell his story better than we can. Tell the people who you are, Flacco, talk a little bit about you, and let's get into it.
Flacco, I'm from Chicago, Illinois, born and raised on the West Side Pilsen area. I'm a member of the Satan Disciples Latin folks group. I've been locked up most of my life. I got juvenile life at 13, which means you get locked up from 13 to 17. And then at 17, you get a chance to come home on 1 year parole. So I did that time. I came home and I was out for like 6 months. I called myself trying to hang out with people that didn't have my back. We got pulled over. There was a gun in the car. The police asked me, did I know about the gun? I said, no, I did not know about the gun. I had no knowledge of it. Well, the person who was driving the car eventually admitted the fact that everybody in the car knew that the gun was there. So they gave everybody obstructing justice charges, and they charged me as an adult, and they sent me to prison.
Let's talk about that 13-year-old life sentence. You're 13 years old and end up with...
No, it's not life, it's juvenile life.
No, but let's talk about, what was that for?
That was for being an accessory to an attempted murder charge.
Was that kind of like some gang stuff at 13 years old?
Yeah, it was pretty much, whenever you become a Satan disciple, you got to put in work, you got to prove yourself. And it just so happened to be my proving myself, and it didn't work out for me.
Tell us what happens. I mean, is it another gang member? Is it another gang?
Yeah, it was, can I say the other gang on here?
Why not?
Oh, I shot a Latin king.
Well, now you better be careful. They might be looking for you, my boy. Maybe we shouldn't have said that.
But yeah, that's who we're into it with. I'm an SD, so in Chicago, it's like really gang culture. And I see a lot of your stuff where you say like on the West Coast, it's a lot of whites, like everybody whites be together and they be on like Aryan Brothers, SAC, and like all that stuff like that. It's not like that in Illinois. There's no racial policies at all. None whatsoever. Whites in the cells with blacks, Mexicans in the cells with blacks. There's no racial, none of that in Illinois. It's about what you are gang wise. If you're Latin folks, you got your own phone, you got your own shower, like you got motion. If you a neutron, non-gang member, you really don't get no motion like that unless you're going to stand up for yourself.
Let me ask you that. What was your life like growing up? What were your parents like?
Both parents, my dad was a gang member too. He was on drugs bad, so I can't really say he was a gang member because he was doing everything you're not supposed to do. My mom was on drugs bad too. And then when I was locked up for that obstructing justice charge, my father was murdered by the Latin Kings, and he's dead now. So when I was in jail, I was locked up in Mount Sterling. My dad died, obviously, and I was trying to go to the funeral. And people don't understand this, too, in the state of Illinois, that if you get in any trouble at all, like let's say you get knocked from A grade to B grade to C grade, if you're on B grade, you can't get a furlough. And if your people die, it don't matter how much money you got, you can't go to that funeral.
Kill your father, what do they do? Shoot him?
They shot him, yeah.
What gang was he in?
He was an SD, too.
It's crazy, right? I mean, you're a young kid, man, following in the footsteps of your father, gang life. I mean, it's just a cycle, man, that it seems like people can't break in that area.
No, and when you're 13, you think it's cool. Like, I didn't even understand. Like, I mean, I was small. I was a small white kid. So I had no idea what I was finna go through. Like, I had no idea and juvenile is different. In juvenile, like there's no clicking up. Like, when you're SD, you're SD. Your enemies on the streets are your enemies in jail. Now, in adult, everybody comes together as one. It's like one big structure. It's different. So it was a lot more rougher for me, I would say, in juvenile than it was adult.
Juvenile. You're in a juvenile home where? In Chicago?
Yeah, I was in IYC Joliet, IYC St. Charles, and IYC Harrisburg.
And what's that like? I mean, is there violence over there? Kids are...
Oh, yes, violence, extortion, rape, people losing their trays. I hate to say this because it seems to be the theme on your show, that a lot of white guys that are in jail are getting preyed upon by the black inmates and are getting, beat up in the cells and getting their food taken. And the general sense is if you're a white inmate, you're weak. I don't know where that shit comes from. I don't know where the stereotypical shit comes from, but here in Illinois, that's how it's looked upon. Unless you show them otherwise, that's up to you.
It's like that in a lot of places, but it's not really like that in California. It's not like that in a lot of maximum security federal prisons. Dudes stick together, whether you're white, black, Hispanic, whoever you ride with, you stick with. And, dudes handle their business, right? But
Yeah.
the stigma that's kind of around that kind of encompasses that now is because we've been showing all this shit that's going on in Alabama. But a lot of them dudes are just junkies, man. They're getting high and they don't care about themselves. They don't care about life and they won't fight back. So, I mean, that's where a lot of that stigma has been coming from, recently.
I
Let's
just hope I don't ever go back and have to deal with it again. I find myself out here. I've been out 7 years now. I came home in 2016 from my long bid. I did 7.5 years on my last one. From 19 to 26. Uh, I really am still 7 years in. It's still kind of hard adjusting to out here, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. But let me ask you this, right? You talked about the white guys. There's a stigma like that in Illinois too, where white dudes are soft.
Yeah, a lot of, especially in juvenile, it's a lot of kids, You get locked up at 13, 14. Some of them ain't never been a part of no gangs. They just did stupid shit, like broke in a house or joyride, stealing a car. Like, they don't care. They send you to jail, like juvenile prison. And when they come in, I hate to say it because it's true. A lot of them come in and they get talked out their ass, They go from being Brandon to Benicia or another name. Like, it's a crazy thing to see a little boy that's 14, 15 years old be forced into homosexual activity. But it is part of being incarcerated for certain individuals.
What's it like for you? I mean, you're white. You're a gang member, though. You're in a Latin gang. I mean, are people pressing?
It was more you got to prove yourself. It was more like, this dude white. We could do what we want to him, But in my case, I kind of grew up in a little like rougher neighborhood. So being like the only white family on the neighborhood, really, it was always constantly getting beat up by the blacks or the Latinos. So to me, I already knew how to I'm not the best fighter in the world. I'm not going to come on here and say I was knocking everybody out in jail. I've lost plenty of fights, but what I never did is not fight back. I just stood on my own,
You have some homies there when in the juvenile.
Of course, yeah. The guy, we stick together, but that's a blessing and a curse. And later on in the story, you'll get into that gang shit ain't what it seems either.
Gang shit ain't what it seems. Sometimes people are, I see older dudes that have been involved in these gangs. They're 30, 40, 50 years old. And they're like, yeah, man. And they got kids, but they're still riding hard for the gang. Like the gang is number one. And I just find that, I find it appalling, absolutely ridiculous at times. So let's talk a little bit about you leaving juvenile and then you end up in state prison. That's in Illinois, right?
Yep.
You ever in Cook County Jail?
Yeah, I was in Cook County Jail for 18 months fighting my last case.
What was that like, Cook County Jail? I mean, I've seen some vicious
Oh my
videos.
God. It's something it's like something I've never seen, from seeing people get stabbed with big ass knives and literally like throwing themselves off the top gallery to the bottom just so they can get away from the one stabbing them. Like, you see this stuff. I seen a Latin count where he had a big ass knife hanging out of his neck, and the guards it went into his neck, and the dude couldn't, for whatever reason, he couldn't pull it out. But if he did pull it out, all his blood would have shot everywhere. But it was a very, very graphic scene, and it was only because of a card game. Somebody was on the card, slapping the card table. Dude told him to chill out. Dude was like, fuck you, whatever the circumstances were. And everybody got into it. Because one goes, we all go. It's policy. It don't matter. It don't matter if it's the COs. It don't matter if it's stabbing another inmate. When you're told to do something, you gotta fucking do it. There's no ifs and or buts about it, or you're gonna be in PC. And don't nobody want to be in PC. I don't care what your circumstances are. Don't nobody want to be over there.
Are you carrying a knife at Cook County?
I have done that. I've had to. They give you one when you come in on the new. Once you pass your probation period, so they can actually validate that you're a member. That's the key. If you're false claiming you're coming into Cook County, you're not a real validated gang member and nobody knows you. I wouldn't advise it. It's not a smart tactic for you.
Dudes know who you are when you get there from your neighborhood, from juvenile.
Yeah. Yeah. And plus being a juvenile, we go from juvenile to adult a lot. So a lot of people knew me from juvenile as well. I didn't really have a rough bid. Like I wasn't, nobody tried to take my shit. Nobody tried to take my ass, like none of that shit really happened in my bid. But there was circumstances that I did get hurt. It comes with the territory.
Talk about circumstances of you getting hurt. What happened?
I was caught in Stateville Correctional Center. Um, when you go to chow, they like to break it up into sections. There's 3 chow halls and like 1 chow hall, if that makes sense. They got like fences to separate certain people from each other, right? Well, in this instance, Latin folks, we always go to the back of the line. Always. That's always where we are. Well, this one particular day, the officers decided that he was going to break up Latin folks' line. So he grabbed me and another individual and moved us to the middle of the line. I don't know why he did this. I guess he had it in his mind that he wasn't going to let the gang members control shit that day. I don't know. But long story short, I ended up in the bullpen, or like the cage where we eat chow with the fin balls. And I already had a prior issue because I had a upside down 5-point crown tattoo on my arm. And they already seen it when we was lifting weights on the yard. And they already addressed my guys about it. Like, look, he got that shit on his arm. Either he needs to wear a thermal or he needs to cover it up. But he cannot walk around the yard with that dip crown on him. They killed my dad. I'm locked up for shooting one. I got the mentality like, fuck that shit. I'm not covering shit. So the guys hollered at me and they're like, man, look, if something goes down because of this shit, you're going to be the one that's going to get in trouble for it. We're going to have to move on you because you're doing unnecessary stuff that's bringing risk on all of us. But I'm 20 years old. I'm not trying to hear it at this time. So I didn't listen. And not to get into too much details, but I got caught in the chow hall and they poked me up.
Not to get into too much details, but I want to know about it. I mean, the people want to know how many times.
Basically, the real deal. We had meatballs and noodles that day, and I remember I was eating my food, and I wasn't paying attention to nobody. I was sitting at the table by myself, even because, like I said, they moved us in. Basically, where the fin balls are in the line, because everything is structured on how we do everything. So you knew who I was going in the cage with. I just didn't know who was who. And one of the little Latino sleeper snuck up behind me and like tried to like grab me by my neck, and his guy got to continuing to try to poke me. So they got me in my face. They got me in my face right here. I got a cut here, my chest, my neck, my arm, and my side. So they got me like maybe 5 times. I think I got poked like 5 times. But I remember it vividly, so vividly, that I was on the floor bleeding. And I remember like, please, God, please do not let this be how I go. On this dirty ass floor around these people that got life. And I shouldn't even have been in Stateville because I only had like, at that time, I only had like 4.5, 5 years left on my sentence.
So it was the Latin Kings that stabbed you.
You can't necessarily put it on the Latin Kings, but you could put it on the Latin fin balls. It could have been a king and a Latin count, a Latin angel, but basically it was the Latinos that ride under the fin, which is the 5.
Riding under the 5-star, they come get you.
Basically, that's how that shit happened.
So now you're laying on the ground. You're talking about, man, you were praying. Were you fighting back at all? Were you at first trying?
Yeah. I was fighting back. I was trying to fight back. I was like throwing punches, but they was really working me. I'm not gonna lie to you. I got caught completely off guard. They rocked me to sleep. I didn't really. It happens, man. It's prison. Don't think that things are okay because sometimes they're not. And if you don't pay attention to body language and signs and symbols, you can get yourself hurt.
Hey, it's the reality of prison, man. Things do happen. And you could be the baddest man on the planet, But when you got 5 dudes on you, they're stabbing you, they're hitting you, there's not much you really can do, right?
Yeah, just hope and pray that you live.
Your homies are in that cage with you. It's just you.
No, it's just me because, like I said, they separated us.
About retaliation after you're healed up, are you thinking, yo, I got to get at these dudes somehow, some way?
Yeah, I was thinking in my mind, I was trying to figure out what to do because up until that point, I've never been in maximum security prison. I've always been in medium camps and like minimum camps, and it's way different, you know. I never had to run into nothing like that where somebody would really want to take my life. Like they really tried to take my life right in front of the police, like right in front of the police. Them bitches even shot the gun. They shot off the warning shot into the wall. Them bitches stopped for like 1 second and then they went back at it again. I thought when the gun went off, like, yes, like, thank God. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and lie and be like, oh, fuck that gun. I don't need the police. Them bitches saved me. You feel me? Like, at the end of the day, they saved my life.
Let me ask you this, right? Let me ask you a really important question. I want people to kind of, zoom in on this question. Your father's killed by, the Latin Kings. You're stabbed by, some Latin gang members under the five, right? And you're part of this gang, you're part of this organization, and you hate these Latin Kings, right?
At the time, yeah.
I mean, a lot of people hate them. I mean, different gangs hate other gangs. We're beefing with this gang. Why do you hate them, though? Did you ever know why?
Shit, I just grew up. Like my older brothers and them too. When I was a kid, they would always tell me, like, you could be anything when you grow up, just don't never be a finball. You know, I'm like 8, 9 years old hearing this, and I'm like, what the fuck is a finball? Like, what the fuck is that? And then I watched my brothers throw up the forks. You know, I watched my brothers have like females, and like my brothers were selling drugs. They was getting a little money. They had a little motion going on. So like, I thought that shit was cool.
Understand why I'm asking you that? I'm asking you that because
No, I 100% get why I 100% get why you asking me that question, and a lot of people have asked me that question, incarcerated too. Like, why? Like, what is the point? Like, what?
bunch of young dudes running around killing each other and don't even know why.
Don't even know why. I never met my victim in my life. Like the victim on my last case where I got 7.5 years. I never knew him, never seen him before a day in life. I just happened to be out riding around looking for ops and looking for Latin King gang members, and just so happened to see him hanging out. And I sent myself off in broad daylight by hopping out of the car and shooting at him. And I got caught. And I didn't get caught later. I got caught. I managed to get rid of the gun, but I was caught within 5 minutes after the shooting, and I was in jail. And I didn't get out for 7.5 years after that fucking incident.
So when you're 13, you're involved in a shooting. Dude doesn't die. You get a couple years into juvie. You get out. You shoot someone else, and then you end up in prison, right?
Yep.
And then you're in prison getting stabbed, and you're laying on the ground bleeding, and you don't die. So you got lucky 3 times. You could have had life a couple of times, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Had life and lost your life.
And on a dirty ass floor in Stateville Correctional Center. That would have been, and your soul's just stuck there forever. Like, I think about that shit. Like, what if you die in jail and that's just where you are forever? Like, what? That is crazy.
What was it like for you being in a Latin gang, being white? I mean, were you accepted? The homies like, oh, that's all right, he's white.
Yeah, because the history of the Satan Disciples, we started off as an all-white gang. So there's always been Caucasians in SDs. There's blacks, there's Asians, there's you name it. Like, there is no racial restrictions, I should say.
No racial restrictions.
None. Only color that matters is green money. Like, that's it.
There ever a time when you're with, around some of the homies in prison and someone just likes you and it's just kind of because, man, this dude.
Yeah. That's happened before too. And there's also individuals that feel like because you're white, you really couldn't be about that life. You know, you just trying to do something to fit in, or you just trying to, and it's not true for every individual. Like, I know a lot of white dudes that are part of each gang and they really go hard for their shit. Now, I'm not saying it is cool. Don't get me wrong. I'm not on here trying to say that I'm this super gangbanger and that I'm out here doing stupid shit now to this day, because now I have 4 kids since I came home in 2016. I got a job. I got a nice car. I got a crib. You know, I got things that I've never had in my life. I've never had an apartment until like 2 years ago. I've never had credit. I never had bills in my name. I never had shit but a DLC number. Like, that's all I had.
So you're growing up, you're maturing now. You're starting to understand that, life is precious. Freedom is precious, right? See somebody lose their life in the street, actually die or in prison?
Yeah, I've seen people lose their life on the streets. My little cousin got killed, little demon. And I actually seen the police put the white sheet over him and put up the tape afterwards to let you know that he's gone. And then I've seen my guy, I didn't see it. Like, I wasn't like looking in the cell, but in Pontiac Correctional Center, you can look this up. His name is Michael Bragg versus Castillo, and Michael Bragg killed him in the cell. And he was my friend. He was a Latin folks member too. But it's the craziest story, and this shit opened my eyes forever. Was he got caught with a pair of toenail clippers that he used for a stinger. You know, you put it in the extension cord, drop it in the water to make your burritos. You probably understand what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So he got caught with that, so they put him in SEG. They sent him to the SEG unit. When he gets the SEG, they put him in a cell with this black stone named Michael Bragg. And when they get in there, now mind you, Michael Bragg already told the police, if you put anybody in my cell, I'm going to kill him. I promise you, I do not want no cellmate. I want to be alone. They don't listen. They put my guy in the cell with him. And within 24 hours, my guy was dead. They got in a fight the first day, but not also did this coward motherfucker fight my guy, but he knocked him out, then tied him up, and then put a plastic bag over his head with an extension cord and wrapped it around it, and just watched my guy suffocate to death on the floor until he was dead.
I might have to look that case up, bro.
Look it up. It's Pontiac Correctional Center. Inmate killed at Pontiac Correctional Center, Michael Bragg. He's a big black dude. And folks that got killed was like a 45-year-old older Latino guy with a bum leg. There was no fight for him. It was a slaughter. Point blank, period.
Pretty much tortured him. He tied a bag around him and let him suffocate.
Tied a bag around his neck and suffocated him to death in the middle of the floor. All because he didn't want a fucking cellmate. And then when I looked the case up when I came home, and you know why he said he did it? So he'll never come home again. He only had like 15 years left on his sentence for aggravated sexual assault. So he was a fucking chomo on top of it. And he killed a real brother. There was a righteous brother, man. He was a good dude. And he killed him just so he don't have to come home again, and he can have single cell status for like 10 years. Because that's what they do. You kill somebody, you get single cell status for 10 years, and then you get your cellmate back.
Definitely a dangerous system over there in Chicago and Illinois, right?
Yeah, that was IDOC Pontiac.
Besides the incident where they're stabbing you and you're laying on the ground and you're bleeding, is there ever a time when you're, like, damn, man, this shit is serious, I might end up dead right here? Maybe a riot or anything like that?
Yeah, when I was in Stateville, I think when I was at Stateville Correctional Center, and there was never a day that I would like I'm a SEG. After that shit happened, they charged me with fighting too, even though I got stabbed. So I went to SEG too. I got a SEG sentence for that. And I don't know why, because I was just simply trying to save my own life, but they charged me with the inmate assault for swinging back, and they gave me 90 days in SEG for getting stabbed. Now, it's some bullshit, but it is what it is. But Stateville is notorious for people going in the wrong cells and waiting for you to come in the cell so they can attack you. Like, they'll tell the guard, they'll be like, hey, what cell you in? I'm in cell 115. Okay, so they open 115 and put you in it, and now you're hiding under the bunk. And then when I come in, not saying me, this didn't happen to me, but it happened to Kilo, and when the door opened to let the inmate in, soon as the CO shuts the door, you come out from underneath the bed with the shank or the lock in the sock and you beat a motherfucker or stab somebody while they're handcuffed. And Stateville was notorious for this. So every time I came in my cell after this incident, I'm checking under the bed. Like, I'm super cautious. That was the only time being in prison I would really honestly say I was scared. After they stabbed me and after I saw that it was real, like, these are real inmates. Like, this is not no juvenile facility. This is not, kiddie camp. Like, these are real inmates with real time that's got 3-4 life sentences and have absolutely nothing to lose. Nothing to lose.
Real gangbangers. These dudes are going hard.
They got life for that shit.
But you talked about you're free now. You've been home a long time. You're living your best life. Got your apartment. You got your girl. You got your kids. What are you doing for work?
I work at a cheese factory.
Work at a cheese factory, but you're making a living and you're able to take care of the family, right?
Yeah, man, it's not the best. I make like $23.50, but that's way more than I've ever made. Legitly, I was making 50 cents a day in the kitchen, serving 3,500 inmates. So, I mean, to me, I'm grateful for the opportunity. Other people are complaining. I'm just different, man. I just do my job and go home. Like, I don't involve myself in a lot of things. I try not to involve myself in a lot of things now because I'm in a different state. I got out of prison, and the best decision I made for me was as soon as I came home, I met a female online, and she lived in Wisconsin. And the first opportunity I had to leave, I left, and I never went back.
Never been back in prison?
Nope. I mean, I've been in the county jail. Weed's illegal up here, so I'm a pothead. So I run into that type of situation. That's the only drugs that I do. I know you get a lot of people on here that ex-drug addicts and stuff. I'm not judging them. Just my story's a little different.
What motivates you to stay free?
I went through hell. I went through hell on my bed. I went through hell, like real life hell, from having feces thrown in my face, having fucking feces mixed with magic shade sprayed onto me, having piss thrown on me, motherfuckers spitting on me. Being in segregation, you locked in the cell, everybody's single cell status. So, the only way you can get to somebody is if you throw feces on them, and they make it a game where they're real life out there on the yard in dog cages, squatting in a corner, taking their jumpsuits off, getting naked, pooping on the floor, picking it up and throwing it at people. Now you might sound like that shit sounds like a lie or crazy, but that's reality.
Shit them down. That's what they call it in New York. That's what they call it in the feds. They're shitting them down.
And so it happens everywhere?
Yeah, it happens everywhere. Of course.
I ain't never seen no shit like that until I got the Pontiac. That's crazy.
Things have changed in the system. When I first went in, I never knew what a gunner was. In New York State prison, people ain't gunning the cops down. You know what that is, right?
I don't let you do that. If I'm your cellmate and you pull your dick out on a nurse, we gonna fight, because that's not what's up. I know people that's got like 20 years segregation, all for sexual misconducts, for flashing.
Never seen that anywhere until I got to the feds. But look, man, you're out here, you're living your best life. I want to ask you a question before we get ready to go, though. Still a gang member?
I'm always gonna be what I am, but I'm not currently doing nothing gang related, if that makes sense. I'm not in bad grace. I don't got a bad name. Like, if I ever go back to DOC, it's not like I'm gonna go back and have to go to PC. Flacco's good because I did the right thing when I was locked up. I didn't snitch on nobody. I had co-defendants that got away. I took my time like a man. This is what it is. And in jail, I never snitched. I never ratted. I never involved myself in homosexual activity. I don't steal. I don't gamble. I don't fucking do drugs. I didn't have the problems that a lot of guys had. I had problems because of what I am.
So now your motivation is your kids, probably, right?
Yeah, I got a 4-month-old daughter, a 14-month-old daughter, a 5-year-old son, and a 4-year-old son. And I've had all of them since 2018. So,
well, you stay busy, and hey, look, man, keep working, keep being the dad, man, and take care of those kids. Anything you want to say before we get ready to go?
I was gonna ask you a question. When in the feds, when you beat up a guard, is that like an automatic case, like it is in Illinois?
It wasn't
Because
always.
I didn't even really get into the. I never really got into that, but I was trying to get into that story because it has a meaning to it on how I was forced to do something that I didn't want to do, and then once I did what I did, it completely changed the directory of my bid. Like I said, I ended up in max when I could have been doing minimum time, and they gave me an additional 3 years for that crime. When I sent you that screenshot of my charges, you saw on there the aggravated battery to a peace officer.
Tell
I
us
was
before we get ready to go. That's what you want to say before we go. Tell us what happened.
So in Shawnee Correctional Center, for any inmates that know, they do this thing called the compliance check. That means each morning at 7:30 after count, they come in and make sure that your room's in compliance. So your shoes have to be put away a certain way. Your things have to be in your box. Now, I'm new to the facility, so I'm not really paying attention to none of that. So the guards he comes in my cell. I had a pair of Reebok Classics that I did not have put away the way they were supposed to, so he grabs my shoes. I'm like, what the fuck? So he grabbed the shoes, he shuts the door, he walks out. I'm like, hey, CO, where my shoes at? Like, what the fuck? Why you take my shoes? He like, you ain't supposed to have that shit out like that. Your shoes have been confiscated and you're getting a ticket for not being in compliance. So I'm like, man, why you acting like a bitch? Or I said something stupid out of my mouth that I had no business saying. So the guard returned back and called me out of my name. I didn't think nothing of it. It's a guard, you know what I'm saying? It's whatever. So when we come out for lunch, I was summoned to a cell and the guys hollered at me and they was like, man, you just let that motherfucker disrespect you in public. Like, you just let him disrespect you in front of everybody. Guard or not, you cannot let that ride. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I only have at this time I was in the county 15 months, or 18 months. So I probably had 4.5, 5, close to 5 years left. And when we came out for lunch after our day room time, I was told that me and another guy, Wacky, was to basically assault the guard. And when I came out, I pretty much walked up to the guard and punched him. And when I punched him, he, pressed the button, but fell down. And then me and Wacky just, was kicking him, hitting him, punching him, doing what we had to do. The guards came out of everywhere. I could have swore it was like SWAT team. They came out of every direction. And when I say they beat my ass, they beat my ass. They beat the living fuck out of me. For every step of the way, opening the door with my head. You know how they press the button in the bubble and the door unlocks? Well, they got me picked up by my feet and they got me picked up by my arms while I'm shackled and handcuffed. So they're just picking me up by these chains on my wrist, and they used my head to open the door. Refused me medical attention, put me in segregation, didn't feed me for 3 days, put staff assaulter on my door. So all the guards knew, and I jagged myself off, man. That got me to Pontiac Correctional Center, which, had to see people throwing shit, see people engaged in homosexual activity. And that's the part where I changed my life. At that point, I seen that this shit's not what it was. Because if they was my brothers, they wouldn't have wanted me to do that. You'd have wanted me to come home, man.
Unfortunately, man, that's that gang life, right? Prison politics and jail politics. Hey, man, you're part of this organization. Dude just disrespected you. They're not thinking about you. They're thinking about the disrespect. Yo, can't don't do that to us. And then, you could have ended up dead. Could have ended up killing him on accident. Then you really would have been ass out. But anyway, listen, Flacco, man, I appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, sharing your experiences. I'm going to tell people, man, if you like what we're doing, hit that like button and make sure you subscribe. Blood on the Razor Wire TV, with respect. Until tomorrow, we're out.